Hello, everyone. It is now noon, and so we'll go ahead and get started with our presentation today on creating your career plan. And as we go through the presentation, if you come up with any questions, please type them in the Q&A, and we'll try and get to some questions and answers at the end. Or is it the chat?
It's the Q&A.
It's the Q&A. I had it right. Okay, thank you, Jessica. And yes, we'll try and get to as many of those questions as we can at the closing of the webinar. So getting started, what is a career plan and why should we do one? We're going to cover a couple of things about why you should even create one and the self-reflection that's involved in creating one. Also, we'll talk about some exploration tactics and resources. And then again, we'll get to that Q&A. Okay, a career plan is a tool that it helps you envision where you want to go in your career and can help you determine how to get there. Like your resume, it's what we call a living document. It's likely to change as you research and move through your career. So we just want to touch on these basic things to get you started in planning your career. Think of your career plan as a roadmap, basically. There's a starting point, but what comes next? Now, one of the reasons that you might want to create a career plan is maybe you're just getting started in the field that you're looking at, or maybe you're preparing to advance, or even if you're planning for a review, it's good to know where you are and where you want to go. So have that starting point, and then by putting some basic steps in place, you'll be better prepared for surprises along the way. Detours, for instance, making a wrong turn by mistake, or even arriving at your destination and then discovering it's different from what you thought it was. A good place to start is with self-reflection. And this is a time to put down in your career plan things that you're good at, things that you like to do. Are you good with numbers? Do you like to work with children? Or maybe cooking is your talent. So think about some of those things you enjoy and some of those things that you're good at. And this creates an inventory of your skills and interests. Next, you want to start thinking about some of the careers you've envisioned yourself in. And on this slide, I couldn't resist putting the astronaut or the fireman. These are things you should still look into if there's still a dream of yours. So that envisioning is very important. I was a girl who loved animals, and I thought I was going to be a veterinarian. But that didn't happen because I went on and talked to some people. Sorry about that. I went on and spoke to some people about what they thought I was good at and that kind of thing. And it was my mother, who was actually a registered nurse, and she'd seen some things in the ER and said, "You're not going to be able to handle a career as a veterinarian. Just because you like animals, think about the ones that are hurt, sick, or have to be put down." And she was right about that. So I was very glad that I spoke to her about that. But also try and contact people who maybe on LinkedIn or something of that nature who are in the career fields you're interested in, and try and arrange an interview with them. And it would be a kind of informational interview. Just a few questions, but to find out why they like the career they're in. Do they see it changing? What kind of education did they need to have? And those types of things. Another thing I'll mention in talking with other people is that there are career like assessments out there that you can take, and there's a bunch of them. And don't take them as being carved in stone, because they're there to give you suggestions, but they are good at teaching you some things that you might not think all the time about yourself. And next, we want to move on to the companies. Who are some of the companies that are hiring for those positions that you're interested in? Um, those are the ones that you want to start looking at their career sites. Start looking at the jobs that they are posting, and the ones that you're interested in, read the responsibilities in the job descriptions. I know it doesn't sound very exciting, but it is one of the best ways to find out about what's required to succeed in the career you're interested in. Job descriptions do, if you read them all the way through, give you an idea of the responsibilities, what type of education you're going to need for that, what certifications you might need. Also, as you're looking at those companies you're interested in, if you're really interested in one, look at their career site and see if they have something called a talent community. And that's usually a place where you can sign up for their talent community and even upload your resume. And that's a good thing to do if you're serious about that company, because that actually puts you in their candidate database or their applicant tracking system. So consider doing that as well as you're researching and looking at these companies. Another thing to consider is, where are you? You've got to consider, are there jobs in your field of interest in the area that you're in? And if not, would you relocate to wherever those jobs are available? The example I've used here is from paralegal, maybe in Minneapolis. And this is what you might find if you search legal offices, law offices. Now, as you're learning more about being a paralegal, you will learn along the way that paralegals don't only work in law offices or for courts and things of that nature. There are people with legal backgrounds working in insurance offices, medical facilities, institutions of higher education, manufacturing companies. So the field is actually quite broad, but I just wanted to use this example of what you might find, in a smaller area. But regardless of your field of interest, keep an open mind about where that career might fit in. And again, doing the career plan is a great way to dig in and learn more about the field. And there's some tools that can help you choose your career and choose those companies of interest to you. Now, Rasmussen University students and graduates have access to some career resources in their student portal that can help with these things. But there are also places you can go, such as Glassdoor or LinkedIn, to find out more information about some of the companies that might be hiring for the careers that you're interested in. So now I'm going to talk about what that career plan visually looks like. I'm a visual person, and it's kind of hard to grasp things out of the air. But the point is, first of all, you can Google and find all kinds of different types of career plans out there. Some that you can even pay for, a template or something like that. But I don't recommend you needing to do that at this point. One that you see on the screen is actually an example I found on Indeed.com. And I looked at it and I thought, it does have the good points in it that could really help you put that career plan together. But the point that I want to make very clear is that this is your career plan, and nobody's grading you on it. So you want to do what really works for you. One suggestion might be a Word document, and maybe you set it up in an outline form. And these are some of the headings that you might use, or the sections that you might use in that career plan. So as we go back through some of the things we've talked about, the talents and interests, have a section for that. The careers you've imagined yourself in, were they right or wrong for you? Did they match up with those talents or interests? Um, then looking at those job postings in the career areas you're interested in, and what is necessary. Are you willing to get a doctorate to move into that area eventually? Think about those things. And software skills, also important to think about. They're constantly changing, and so you will be upskilling and again, changing this career plan as you go through time. So you will definitely want to look at that. And then availability in your area. Very, very important. Also, can't make the jobs come to you. So if there's something you really want to do and it's not in your area, you're going to want to think about, am I going to relocate? Now, revisiting your plan, this document is never done, as I mentioned earlier. So keep documenting as you go through your career, your jobs, what skills you've added, what new softwares you've used. And maybe you do decide to change your mind and completely trash one of them, one of the ideas that you had, like I did with my veterinarian idea. But it's good to take that time, whether it's at a review or you're just getting ready to make a change in your career, to stop and look over your plan and decide where you need to make those changes. Again, nobody's grading you. Maybe you just start a new tab in your spreadsheet if that's what you decide to use. So you have permission to go in there and do what you need to do to continue to grow in your career. So those are some basic steps that I wanted to cover. And I'm hoping that you enjoyed hearing about the career plan and at least get the idea that it doesn't have to be a rigid APA format or anything like that. This is yours and you're going to mess it up and you're going to change it and you're going to add things as well. Now, if you enjoyed this information, please do follow us on our Facebook page. And I'm going to encourage you to also look for Rasmussen University Career Services on on YouTube, because we have other webinars from this Career Toolkit series on a channel in there. So there are some good ones, and there's one that we did earlier in the year that talks about some of the other platforms you can go to really get in depth in Career Research 101, we called it. And then also look for our most recent webinar that is the AI impact on your job search, where our Chief Academic Officer, Dr. Brooks Doherty, shares some really current information about artificial intelligence. So please look those up and then subscribe, because we're going to continue building and we put tips out there and things that can keep you up to date on what's going on in the world of work. And now I want to turn things over to my colleague, Jessica, a quick introduction and let us know if we had any questions come in.
Awesome. Well, hello. Thank you so much, Amy. I'm Jess Colts, and I'm part of the career services team as well. We had, a really great discussion. You really set the stage on how to create that framework, how to start putting together your individual plan. And there were some questions that popped up that I want to make sure that we go through as it relates to your best advice for perhaps someone that's completing a program like business that has many different career path options.
Hmm.
How would this person know when they're choosing the right one?
It's difficult. And I'm a true case of, once the veterinarian idea got tossed, it was a different point of view, but I started in at a large university right out of high school, and I changed majors every quarter, the first year. I didn't know what I wanted to do. And so what I found is that, you keep moving forward. I got a job that I didn't know I would ever get, but it was an opportunity I saw in the newspaper back then. And I was in that job 4.5, 5 years in one part of the organization and then moved to another. It was my first real solid job and I learned so much in it. I didn't stay in the field, but the things I learned in it, I was able to bring into other jobs. And another example is I never knew there was such a thing as a staffing specialist in a staffing firm. And I had been working in that prior job, and someone I knew came and she had been working in the staffing firm and said, you should go apply. So I did. And I had been taking these business courses, actually through Rasmussen in the evenings and keeping my day job. But I went and applied, and that was my next big shindig. I was in that one for a number of years as well, and it just really clicked. The point being, trying to find a career area shouldn't be just a tunnel vision. It's not just one thing. I had to look at what was available around me. And to me, my business major made a lot of sense because you do learn tools that you can take into any kind of field. One of the tools, or one of the things I learned about, was accounting, and I'll never be an accountant. Okay, I know what it is, and if I need one, I'll hire one. But I'm good with numbers, but not accounting. And so these are the things that you learn going through your education, asking people questions, look at some of those career interest assessments. And I encourage you to get working. You learn.
You know what?
Mhm.
Yeah. Well, that's it's a beautiful segue into this next question, but I think you bring up a really good point. It's being really cognizant and aware, and looking at where the connections can be made from your education and past experiences, for sure. I'm really interested to know, um, regarding, an individual had shared, what if I live in a more rural area, but I don't
Mhm.
want to relocate? So you talked about knowing what's around you. What advice, what options exist for those people?
Well, again, the importance of this career plan is you should be looking at those things ahead of time. Um, Honestly, again, I really think I started my career plan in grade school. Made the mistake of thinking I was going to go this way and ended up going completely another way. Nothing fancy because I didn't write anything down, but I was already making some decisions about where I saw myself going. It's that simple, really. However, geographically, you do need to be aware of what is around you. And if you're dead set on one certain thing, it might not be there, and we can't make the jobs go to you. So something you got to know ahead of time. There's a lot of remote work available, and that's something I know we're going to touch on in our future webinars also. But there again, there's a lot of stipulations with remote work and licensing. So if you're in a very secluded area, you can't count on that unless you really know of a job that will work for you in that area. So very important to take a look at your map, get the road map out, and see what is around you. And Google Maps is good for that.
Absolutely. And then, as you had shared in your discussion, really building the networks, having conversations with companies of interest, and really
Mhm.
building that. We actually just had, excuse me, a question pop in, from someone who's finishing up their master's degree in 3 more weeks. Congratulations.
Wow, great.
Yes, that's a huge accomplishment. The question that this individual possessed was, or has shared, was, how do I create a plan that's going to allow to gain relevant experience for the position I really want? So I really like where, this soon to be graduate, is
Mhm.
coming from, already thinking of, all right, I know where I want to be, but I can't necessarily just leap from where I'm at now to there. So what advice do you have?
Well, again, for me, my experiences were mostly learned on the job. And again, I did not, those jobs kind of popped up in front of me, and I'm like, oh, I could do this, and applied. I really encourage you to get into something related to your field. Doesn't have to be that one exact thing that, I'm going to be this, I'm going to be an astronaut. Um, it's really about being open-minded and go back to your career plan. And as you work in different positions and look at your skills inventory, your talent, what have you added to it? And how is that going to fit in to a job you see yourself going into? Another thing to think about is how quickly jobs change nowadays. We have to be looking into the future about, okay, in the legal field, they're using what kind of software now, or in the medical field, it's just everything is changing so quickly. So again, you want to be keeping track in your inventory of things you experience, and you want to know how those experiences and those pieces of education are going to fit into your next step. And because things change so quickly, your next step may change too.
That's, you know what, you bring up such a important aspect, which is thinking that the steps are so, you know, that they build up. They're not, things are very
Mhm.
lateral. A career path is going to have a lot of twists and turns
Yes.
and shifting. And as
Mhm.
you shared with your within your own experience, and I can validate as for mine as well. Sometimes you scratch it and you start over. You know, but I
Absolutely.
also think it's important to not negate experiences that you've had that are relevant. I think so
Mhm.
often we think, okay, we're finishing a program. I'm now going to start creating the experiences that I need. Where we're maybe negating or not taking into consideration all those transferable experiences. And then, you know, I'm a huge advocate at also looking at volunteerism to gain relevant
Absolutely.
experience. And that may
Yes.
be also unpaid internships as well.
Mhm.
And so I would be remiss if I didn't share that. I'm a huge person that really validates and thinks that volunteerism can create just lasting experiences that then validate the skills that you possess. Um,
Absolutely.
we have
Thanks for
another
bringing that up.
question. Oh, absolutely. We have another question that popped in that was relating to what about a person who's changing jobs in the same field, but you know they're not experienced it. So they're going from, let's say, a nurse position. So the example was a staff nurse to an administration role. How would you coach someone that is navigating into that type of transition?
Well, here again, I would go back to my skills inventory. And you know, when you're in nursing, yes, it's more hands-on, the patient care part of it. Our administrators in our healthcare facilities, they know about that part. Some of them are strictly with business skills. So you're looking at taking that on the floor, you know, person to person type of skill. But look at, you've already, you know, charted, you know about how in medical insurance works, and how those, the money comes in and the bills get paid and those kinds of things. So you'll probably be using and tuning up those person to person skills as far as managerial skills, knowing what goes on in the business end, and keeping it all connected. Number one being the patient comes first, and you want to hang on to staff and keep them happy. So a lot more of that kind of thing instead of being your own person as a nurse. So interesting question, and love to hear when people are moving into those different roles. You didn't see them coming sometimes. It's a great example. I never thought I was going to do this or that, but being open to opportunity, because you just don't know until you know.
Absolutely. And you know, I think another aspect, and you bring in, is certainly validating your transferable skills that you're really honing in. But don't be afraid to have what we call informational interviews.
Mhm,
Identify people that are in roles that are similar to what you're pursuing, whether it's at, you know, your current facility, a facility you were at, or you know, individuals, professionals that you know, and
mhm,
talk with them about you know, any obstacles with any things that can happen when you're transitioning into a role that's more
mhm,
patient facing to the you know, more back of the house, that admin, more like that. I think that um, having questions and getting the advice from someone who's in that role and perhaps
mhm.
did that identical transition is a beautiful thing that can happen. um,
Absolutely.
oh,
I see too often people who have an idea of what a job looks like. It looks like this one thing. And that then they find out that's not true at all, or they find out they just would hate to be stuck in that job when they learn more about it. So very important to talk to people. And with LinkedIn these days, there's no excuse not to be able to connect. And I find that other professionals really do enjoy, in most cases, taking a moment to share some of their experiences to help someone getting into a new field.
absolutely. And don't negate your faculty that you have too.
Absolutely.
Many of them are working still, within facilities and certainly have their network. So leverage your existing network that may have connections as well. And
Mhm.
I'm a huge proponent of having the conversation with a faculty that you currently have or had before. Um,
Mhm.
we got another question that popped in. Another person is finishing up MBA
Mhm.
in December. So congratulations to this soon to
Wow.
be graduate. We're in the final weeks. You're getting there. That's something to be super proud.
Congrats.
Um, one of the question that came was that this individual is struggling with the gap in the resume when applying for new positions. Any tips on how to handle that? And so now that they took time off, they're finishing the MBA, how could you have the conversation about why you took the time off of work?
First of all, know that in this day and age, after we've been through a recession and a pandemic, having gaps in a resume is like standard almost. You know, you just want to be prepared to talk about it. I have worked with candidates who said, I was able to stay home with my young children for a while. That's awesome, and so explain it. During that time, you're doing things, you're keeping track of things. If you've taken any courses along the way, great. You want to keep track of those things in your career plan. So don't shy away from it. Just understand how you're going to explain it. But most employers really are used to seeing gaps. You can also stay away from the chronological type of resume and stick more to the skills-based kind of thing and go from there. But having a gap is actually a great thing to talk about in most cases in an interview. This is what I got to do. I got to take a break from this or whatever the case may be. And if it is, I lost the job. Everybody, or we all know somebody who has along the way due to whatever circumstances. So yeah, don't let that get you stuck.
And you bring up a great point. I would be remiss if I didn't assert that really that skills based, the competency based resume. There's a shift, so be on the lookout for more conversation around this. But uh, related to really focusing on skills on the resume and how that is a shift in the hiring process. So employers
Mhm.
are now looking for more skills versus um, that traditional chronology based
Mhm.
resume.
But it will never
Oh,
be either or. It will
true
always
point.
be education and skills.
We
So
need the
don't
we
negate
need
that.
both of them.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. Another question just came in. So this individual was saying, how would you go about handling for someone who may be older applying for a job that may have younger applicants as well?
Oh my goodness, welcome to my world. I'm surrounded by younger people and love it. I have had great experiences. You want to don't focus on that. Um, the thing to focus on is it going to be in, get an interview, and is the interview comfortable? Is the job something you can handle? If you're getting an interview, you're already kind of getting a yes, they're interested in you. But I've never been good at keeping track of even my best friend's age. It's one of those things that I just like to put over here. In my experience, I found working with younger people, when you have good people, good leaders, good coworkers, um, it doesn't matter the age difference. One of my best friends is, way younger than I am. We worked together a number of years ago and became close, and we still are. So, um, and the younger people that I work with help me all the time with my technology questions, and I'm not afraid to say that, because technology, when I started working, we didn't really have computers in the offices at the time. It's that long ago, but yeah, I have found wonderful people who are very willing to sit down and help me out. And now we have computers where we can share our screen and learn things that way. So constantly learning. But yeah, you'll teach them things too. Let's put it that way with your
I think the
experiences.
thing is that you focus on your experience. You focus what you
Mhm.
bring in, and that's regardless of age. I think we live
Absolutely.
in a time where I feel like there is less of a focus,
Mhm.
certainly on those aspects.
Mhm.
I think there is a lot of embrace of diversity and across the board, for the cultures of most and all, really all companies across the board. And
Mhm.
so it's just important that you
Mhm.
articulate why you're the best candidate, because it doesn't
Mhm.
matter about your age, and it doesn't matter about if you bring 30 years of experience directly from the exact role, right, Amy? I mean,
Right.
that doesn't matter necessarily.
It doesn't matter, and keep building that living document, that career plan. Make sure as you're changing your resume, you can take those pieces from your career plan and make sure they're on your resume as you keep moving forward in your career. Know what you bring is the best thing. You just said that. What do you bring? And it takes all of us. And there's so many different generations in the workplace that it's really pretty fascinating. Constant learning, I will say that. So enjoy.
Absolutely. The great questions are coming, and they still are. So
It's
this is
great.
wonderful. This next question ties from someone who's coming from a completely unrelated background. So said that they
Mhm.
came from, a kitchen background. Now they're going into medical billing and coding.
Mm.
And so how can you apply your past experiences to your current role?
Well, my best advice would be reading those job postings so you know what is being asked for in there. Um, no matter what industry you came from. Uh, we all get started somewhere. And I learned one of the things at the beginning of my career after I was a server and a hostess in a 24/7 restaurant. I've done all those things. That's where I learned I could talk to people and I can engage with people. That's like number one skill that's needed in many careers. Medical billing and coding, you're maybe not so connected to other people, so you have to look at the job posting and they're asking for accuracy, they're asking for production. There's usually assessments you need to pass, so you really need to get yourself involved in the career area. And I encourage people to start in a medical facility as soon as you can if you don't have that experience, because you do have experience with customer service, with if you were documenting things in your other job. What are those things that can transfer in that you're using even now in your education? And really keep track of those education pieces too, so that you can talk about them when you go in for a job interview. But again, you learn on the street, I've always said. So learn in the job. And if you can get an entry level position, which is what I started with way back in the beginning, it was in a medical records clerk job. And I learned so much. And that's where I still love the medical facility and medical terminology and all of those things today. But that was just by chance that that happened. So get out there and start looking. And there's some place to start that will give you medical office background.
Absolutely. Great advice. Let's see if anything else is coming through. I'm loving this discussion that is coming um,
Absolutely.
out
And
here. This is beautiful. All right. And one thing that I'm seeing, and this is something that we haven't seen in the past, is the discussion that's happening even between attendees, talking
oh,
about the skills they have, the transferable skills. And this is wonderful. This is the type of conversation that really is great. Your peers bring a lot. So, I mean,
mhm.
let's keep this going. It
You're
looks like,
networking right now.
yes, right now. I love it. I love it. Um,
Connect.
we'll wrap this one up unless more certainly come through it with a what happens when you struggle with identifying strengths? Part of that career plan, I know you identified, Amy, was going through um, really talking through, and identifying what you're good at, what you're not good at. Well, what if
Mhm.
you really struggle with identifying what you're good at? How would you go about doing that? How would you get more comfortable in self reflection?
Well, again, no matter what the career area is that you came from, you've worked for people, you've worked with people. Those are people who can tell you. I know I've had leaders tell me certain things about communication style or this or that that I didn't really know about either. But even way back early in my career, I had a manager tell me, your communication skills, the way you connect with people is going to serve you through your whole career. You've got to talk to people and find out those things. If you've had reviews, what have you been told that this is what you're doing well? Um,
Mhm.
and this is what you can work on. So there's always those things as well. I'm right now working on getting better at some things in my career that I had never done before. And it's happened actually throughout my career. Things keep changing, and you just have to keep taking on new things. And then you find out from other people what you're good at and how it feels to you.
I love the advocacy for lifelong learning. I think that
Mm-hmm.
just speaks volume of really a lot of our beliefs, and certainly something that I hope is a main takeaway is um, you're going to continue to get those strengths and have opportunities to learn. And as careers change, and Amy, you brought this up in your response to one of our questions just a few moments ago, um, that next step might disappear before you get there, and you're going to
Yep.
have to pivot.
Mm-hmm.
And just acknowledging that and embracing that. But I would also say, hey, take a look at those papers you did really well, or an
Mm-hmm.
assignment that you did really well. What feedback did you get that was really
Yeah.
positive?
All
That
matters.
is for someone who says, I don't have any experience. That is going to give you some pointers on how to identify strengths that you're going to bring to your future employer.
Mhm. Your job as a job seeker is to be able to sell the things that you do well. And so you can't just sit back and go, I don't, you know, what do you do well? It's the important thing. And speaking of takeaways, we're going to be sending out an email with the link to this so you can go back and listen to this recording. And also just another piece that we're throwing in that goes along with career planning. But we really want to thank you for being with us today. And I hope that it's helped in you finding a direction. Thank you so much.
And actually, it looks like someone might have a question. Go ahead and type it in Q&A if you have a moment. We'll finish.
Yes,
We'll be
take it.
happy to take that one. So if you click on the top icon under Q&A, you can start type right there.
Mhm. Love,
Otherwise,
love these questions, and I really love hearing that there's been chatter going on in the background, because of course I don't see that on my screen. But um, one of the things I loved as a student in Rasmussen, earning my bachelor degree many years ago, um, the discussion posts. I learned
mhm,
so much about people from the discussion posts. Those are fun for me.
absolutely. All right. Well, it looks
Right.
like there's not a Q&A in there, but if something comes up, you are welcome to reply to that the follow up, and/or certainly take a peek at all those resources that are accessible that can continue this conversation. So I will
Follow us on
pause
Facebook.
there.
Yes, subscribe on our YouTube channel, and we're going to keep building. And actually, we're going to be asking people in the future what you want to hear about. So, thanks for coming today and joining us. Thank you, Jessica.
Thanks, Amy. Thank you all.
Everybody have a great day.